Well, there you are. You've just seen me feed a pouch of hemp and casters on the Great Ooze at St Neots, where today I'll be showing you my way, my method that's very simple, very easy to do in fishing a waggler on the river. I'm hoping to catch double figures, a roach, dace, maybe an odd chublet. The water's very clear, but there's a lot of fish here. And this method that I'm going to use on the waggler, and the way I feed, is a very simple approach to put double figures in the net. So follow me through this session on the waggler, and I'll give you my in-depth setup, the way I fish, the cack-handed way I fish, and hopefully show you how to put a few fish in the net on the waggler. So let's get started. I've only just started. This is lovely fishing, this is. I just about swing that one. Look at that for a roach. Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful fish. Probably 4 ounce, 4 or 5 ounce. Awesome fish. Well, my setup, I'll just drop that down there. Very important thing is to keep the flow of feed going in. I'm feeding probably 15-20 casters, probably the same in hemp. I'm probably just this side of the middle, and I'm keeping that feed going in regularly, and I'm casting into that, just past the feed, and just putting the float back into the feed. And then if I talk to you actually about my setup now, I'll just take you through my actual tackle setup that I'm using today. Float's one of my new plastic slims, 6 in the range. This is a 1.5 plus 1 gram. It's loaded. I've got a couple of number 1 round the float, and I've got 4 number 8 spread evenly apart, a couple of inches apart, and then I've got 3 number 10s spread about 3 inches apart to a 6-inch hook length. The hook I'm using is one of their new MXB2s. It's a PTFE coated medium spade end barbed hook, lovely and sharp. I've got it tied to 0.10 pound micron, which is about 2.5 pound. My reel line is the Horizon reel line, and that's 016, which is about £4. It's a lovely grey colour, which I think really blends in like with the water. And people say, oh, are you using a floating line or sinking line? Well, this line you can use for both. It comes in a 300 metre spool. If you want to sink it, you can sink it. If you want it to float, it will float. That's obviously on the Horizon 3000 reel. It's got a lovely wide spool, nice small reel. It's a pleasure to use with this new Horizon Pro Waggler 13-foot 1. The new rods that Matrix have launched this year. It's a real light rod, it's a top end rod, and balance with that reel makes casting easy, because if you've got a heavy rod, you can feel it in the cast, and there's more effort to cast. It's effortless casting with a light rod like this balanced with a reel. I just think it's a lovely balance. The rod's a through action rod. Although I'm using it on the river, I'd be happy using it on lakes and that. If you're catching bream, you can catch carp on it, but it's not as a pellet Waggler rod. It's designed as a natural 13-foot 1 Waggler rod. So it's at home on rivers, but you can easily use it on commercials, catching skimmers, F1s, but not suited like for pellet Waggler fishing. But the most important thing is keep feeding, and I'm feeding probably 15-20 casters, and probably maybe the same in hemp. Just this side of middle, and when I bait up and cast out, I'm casting just past middle and pulling it back into the feed, and I'm feeding just slightly downstream. And I'm just putting a single cast on, and I'll try hemp later, just hooking it like a maggot. And I pull back, cast, check it, and when I say check it, put your finger on the spool you want it to land, so you kick the hook bait past your Waggler so it doesn't tangle. If it just casts and let it land, it can tangle. Oh, and that went. I was just going to feed again, then that went. Let's check the hook bait. Absolutely smashed. Another caster on. And then away we go again. Cast it, check it, put it back into the feed. Feed again. There we go. Straight in the feed. Feels like a dace to me. Yeah, a little dace. Lovely fish to catch. And just repeat the process. Whatever happens, if I get a tangle or something happens where I'm not in this rhythm of casting and feeding, I've got a little time clock in my mind telling me to feed. So I'd stop, make sure I feed, because you've got to keep those fish on that line feeding. Just keep that rhythm up. It's lovely because you can read the shot as it pulls the tip down on the float. Now she's weighted up now, so that's running through. And I'm probably about a foot off bottom because it's a bit weedy. There's some cabbage patches on the bottom in certain areas where I'm drifting over and catching. So I've just shallowed up. I'm probably a foot off bottom. But that'd be ideal then when I start fishing hemp on the Waggler. Again, repeat the process. Make sure you keep feeding. Because if you ain't got those fish feeding amongst your feed, you're not going to catch. There we are, lovely roach that time. That took it on the drop, so I reckon they're coming up for the hemp. Beautiful roach, probably half a pound, lovely fish. A few more of them will do. Well, that was a lovely roach and that took it on the drop. So obviously the fish is coming up for the feed, maybe coming up for the hemp. Now, what I'm thinking about, I could shallow up, but then sometimes when you shallow up, it's not the same presentation as it falling that last bit through the water freely. So I'm going to stick as I am at the moment, but when I come to put hemp on the hook and have a go on hemp, I may come off the bottom, maybe a little bit more, because hemp's a drug to them. They just attack it, they just want it, they just get addicted to it. But still getting plenty bites and catching at this depth, running it through my feed. A lovely bite that was. Feels like another roach. Oh no, it's a little dace. Now I don't know if you've seen what people call the poly swap. It's where, although I'm right-handed, I fish with a pole. I fish left-handed on the pole. But I swap hands. You can see I'm casting with my left hand, so the handle's on the wrong side. But it's just the way I was brought up. I've tried to change and can't, and I get an awful. See, I'm just going to wind it back a little bit with the handle on the opposite side. Feed, pick up. But let's see, if I catch a fish this time, I'll tell you when I'm swapping. But I just do it naturally. I'm wondering if someone's had my cast because I'm not getting a touch. I've had a bite every run through, unless a pike suddenly arrived. There, that went just then. See the swap though? I'll demonstrate again. So I've got the fish, I'll swap it back to my right hand, still playing the fish, wind it in, and then when I swing the fish in, I'll swap again. Yeah, another little roach. You may be thinking, how's he doing that? It's just something I've done all my life. Why I fish like that, I don't know. Maybe when I was a youngster, my dad come behind me and pulled the rod and was behind me, winding it in with me, and it's just how I fish. And there's a few other anglers do that as well. Maybe it's something in the genes. See the swap again? See me sieving through the cast, I'm just looking for one real nice fat red cast to put on the hook. Now swapping again, winding the fish in, swapping again, swinging it in, little roach. Very important, as I say earlier about casting, I'm casting just downstream and I'm feeding, obviously like to where I'm casting. And as it lands in, I'm just checking it so my hook bait goes past my waggler, else otherwise it'll end up in a big pole tangle around it. So you see, I'll cast slightly downstream, just check it, line the line in a straight line behind it, but it's at an angle because I'm slightly downstream. That way straight into your feed. There's no chance the fish then coming up above you. And you just get into a rhythm, as you see I'm in now. Although it's very hot, I've had a little bit of pike trouble. I cast down, so just check it, so I stop it so it all straightens out. Then feed, straight into my float, under straight away that went. A few bleak about there as well, but that's a nice roach. It was just getting into that rhythm of casting. So it reaches where I want it to go, so I just stop it on the spool, so check it so it falls back behind it. Then feed. I'll put some hemp this time. Goes, that went straight away. Just lovely sort of fishing. Have a nice little roach. No rush, nice and smooth. Also, I slightly turn the rod a little bit in my hand, just so as the line doesn't catch on the rings casting out, because it can catch it and whip it in front of you, so it just falls in front of you. So I just turn my wrist slightly at an angle to make sure when I bring the line back, the line's not catching on the rings as I cast it out. Just holding up. Could be oblique. Just coming to the end of where I'll retrieve it back and recast. So I've had a bit of roach towards the end of the peg. I say it's towards the end, it's only probably a 3 metre run. Now there's a pike just swelled there out on the feed. That'll unsettle them, but just keep at it, just keep going through the routine. Turn my wrist so as it don't catch the rings. Cast it out, check it, just pull it back a little bit. Feed. Sometimes, you know, you've got to be quick. The more bites you're getting quicker. Just speed yourself up a little bit so you're watching your float go down. It's weighted up now. Hopefully it will go under. Lovely fishing, this is absolutely lovely. So the boat's gone straight through, pulled the water up a little bit. That shouldn't affect the fishing. Another tip I'd like to explain to you, it's easy for me saying I'm fishing a loaded waggler or an insert waggler, but why have I chose that waggler to use? And a couple of things dictates the size of float that you need to use and style of float. Flow depth, and then also wind can play a part. You can have a third member step in and absolutely, completely change it. Because if you're casting to a certain spot with 2 gram, and the wind gets up, you might need 4 gram, 5 gram, it just depends. Really, fishing a waggler is just an extension of fishing a pole. You're trying to fish a float as precise and neat to land and everything, like you're laying in the float on a pole rig, but it's on a waggler and you're casting it. If it goes in a big whoosh and a big splash, it's not right. You want it to land nicely, because it can frighten the fish. Sometimes people say it attracts the fish, but it can frighten the fish. So with a float, choosing the right length, the right shot, and the thickness of tip. Where I'm fishing an insert today, it's probably a 3mm insert. You know, you wouldn't fish something that's a 5mm insert, a big thick tip, and it just wouldn't work right. So I've got on today, I've got a 1.5 plus 1 gram, which is that size waggler, with an insert, a nice fine insert, loaded, because with a loaded float, you haven't got to have so much shot on the line, especially with this using save shot now. It's very strong, and it is not very kind to the line. It can cut through the line when you push it on. So less shot on the line, very important if you're casting 1,000 times during a match and you put intention on that line with that shot on there, which can weaken it. So it's different fishing situations dictates the sort of float you'd use. And like today, where I'm using the 1.5 plus 1 gram insert tip, so I'm fishing a caster, I'm fishing small hook baits and hemp as well. It's just right for the job. The swim's about 6 foot deep, and I'll fish between 6 and 4 foot. Depending if I fish hemp, I'll come off the bottom. And that's just I feel that's the right float and the right choice. We've got a slight breeze, but it's very hot, the water's calm, and I'm fishing down the middle of the river, which is probably, I'm chucking probably about 25 metres. Nice comfortable chuck. So hopefully that helps you on choosing the right float for the right situation. Well, I'm going to catch a couple more fish, a couple more casts. It's been a bite every cast, but I've had runs of fish. Best hook bait's been caster, single caster, hooked like a maggot. I had a few on hemp, but I think caster's just been a better bait, and sometimes it can go the other way. But best depth about a foot off bottom. I think there's a little bit of weed out there, maybe some little cabbages sticking up off the bottom. And if I come up a foot, I can just clearly run through. I had a little bit of pike trouble. I think all remains is to catch another couple of fish, and we'll have a look at what I've caught. Easy double figures there, look, some lovely roach, simple fishing, caster and waggler and feeding some in. Give it a go, we're going to get this back in the water, catch you next time on the bank.